I read, I don't think it was the reading teacher article. I think it was one in Kaplan. But I read an article where you talked about your analysis of the third and fourth grade readers who are, that are, everybody's saying there's so many kids in the upper grades who are struggling with reading, and that therefore we need to do, and there's all these, core reading programs and so forth that people are recommending. And yes, it was interesting to me. I don't remember the exact percentages, but it was startling because you basically said that the big problem that these kids are encountering is not with phonics. And if it is phonics, it's with the multisyllabic words. It's
Correct.
not with the that. So that if you're teaching a third, fourth grader, and they're not in the lower 5%, and everybody should go back to your article on this. We should figure out what the exact title of it and post it. But sure, the kids in the lowest 5%, that's different. But there's a huge group of kids, and the problem does not seem to be phonics for them. It seems to be that they're reading too slowly. And so then your suggestion is that they need to be doing a lot of continuous text reading, that the rare words, it's best if they're repeated so that those words are no longer rare for them.
Right.
Right. But now what I'm trying to understand is why. I love Text Project, and I do think we should spend some time talking about the resources you have there and the power of them. But what I'm trying to figure out is, are you basically suggesting that they do a lot more of like text set reading about, penguins or volcanoes or whatever, that they are just reading on a topic and reading a bunch of great nonfiction books on it? Or is there something particular you're wanting in those texts?
I'm actually saying we have to understand that for some kids, for part of the time, they need to have some scaffolded text. And by scaffolded text, as a classroom teacher or a curriculum supervisor in a school, you can find some text where there's a lower percentage of rare words. But I'm saying you have to find those texts somewhere. And I'm saying it has to be part of the diet. And when I'm thinking of Katie, who's with young children, I think that this same principle applies to the very early stages, which is why I've been writing these texts that don't constitute a whole reading program. They constitute grist for doing additional reading and application. So I am actually saying, in terms of like phonics patterns, after the CBC pattern, see, I think we CBC kids far too much. I think in some of the early decodables, you're just seeing all these CBC words. I've told the story of how I worked with my grandniece during the pandemic, and her teacher was retiring. So when we start working together at the beginning of March, the retiring teacher hadn't had that much energy to do all that much with phonics. So my grandniece had not gotten past CBC words, and she thought every word in English would be a CBC word. So, like her grandpa's name and her cousin's name is Pete. It's a family name. And so she thought she would call that pet. So I've actually crafted books where you get to see more opportunities with words that are long vowels. So I'm just saying, as a beginning reader, I think some of the automaticity training comes from seeing additional text with the patterns that you're learning in terms of phonics. So please don't think that I'm dismissing phonics. And I thank you for bringing up the point about multisyllabic words. Yeah, I mean, it's not that they don't need support with the structure of words. They need a lot of support with the structure of words, including morphology. But the point that I'm trying to make is, I think you have to look at the task carefully and keep remembering some of these kids have never seen text that they're really good at.